Dregs, what do you think the deal is in Toronto?
Well, I mean, Kyle Dubas and his henchmen continue to
not play.
They continue to scout the Carolina Hurricanes, the New York Rangers. We know that, whether it's a depth piece like Adam McQuaid, who is probably better than a depth piece. He's a third pairing defenseman, but he's got experience, and he brings a tangible asset of having a grit element to him. Are they still looking at Brett Pesce? Is it Justin Falk? Like, who are they looking at in Carolina? And what we continually are told is that, they're scouting these guys, but they don't want to give up a player off their existing NHL roster. So then you look to the Marlies, and you see Liljegren, and you see Borgman, and you see Jeremy Bracco, and you see guys like that. I'm sure everybody's asking for Sandin. But that's not happening.
They're not getting Sandin. So, and there are other people who maintain that Liljegren is an untouchable too, and I don't believe that.
No, me
that's my take.
Yeah.
Is that he could be had.
Yeah.
That Sandin's the guy that they really want to protect at all costs, but that they'd be much more open to just about anybody else off the Marlies.
The thing that bemuses me about the whole Carolina-Toronto thing, because I think I'm as guilty as anyone to keep bringing them up all year, especially during the Nylander thing, but so Lawrence Gilman, the assistant GM of the Leafs, by my count, and we probably don't know everyone, but has at least scouted them personally 3 times over the last month, the Hurricanes, including this past week when the Rangers were in Carolina. But as of this morning, unless I'm not getting great information here, my understanding is the Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes have not spoken in forever. So,
yeah,
I don't know if this is the ultimate tease from the Toronto Maple Leafs to Carolina or... what's going on?
I mean, we made an agreement that we would throw out anything we wanted that wouldn't infringe on insider trading. So I can tell you, Marcus Leto, who's Kasperi Kapanen's agent, is in Toronto, and he's meeting with Kyle Dubas prior to the game. And who knows? I mean, now, I don't think that anybody should expect any sort of revelation to come out of that meeting. It's an initial introductory style meeting, right? Where, all right, well, what are you guys thinking? Are you thinking bridge? Are you thinking, multi-year extension? What are you thinking? I think it's just building the parameters, but maybe it takes a different tone.
And Marcus Leto's going to say offer sheet. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, he might. And then, but look, I mean, again, depending on how that conversation goes or subsequent conversations, maybe even between now and Monday, does that change the view of Toronto management as to whether or not they're more willing to consider one of those pieces?
I know Bob's listeners are very in tune and they're very smart, but the reason you made that jump to Kapanen is obviously because that's a player that Carolina covets, as well as Andreas Janssen, by the way. I mean, Carolina would love to get into a conversation about either one of those young forwards. It's just that conversation literally has not happened yet.
Right. Well,
and it may not.
I believe in addition to Kyle Dubas talking to Marcus Leto about Kasperi Kapanen, that Dubas may have already spoken in the past week, and if he hasn't, he will be very soon, to Andreas Janssen's Swedish agent as well. And to your point, Darren, I think what's happening here is it's just collecting information. I mean, I don't believe that Kyle Dubas or the Toronto Maple Leafs want to trade Kasperi Kapanen or Andreas Janssen by Monday.
Right.
I don't think that's the plan.
No.
But you got to think more globally here. And we all, I think, and I talked about this with Landsberg and Koliakovo the other morning, I think we're all guilty sometimes of being so ultra-focused, looking through a pinhole at the trade deadline, and everybody looks at the Leafs and said they need a right shot D and they need a forward who's tough. And I think a general manager like Kyle Dubas and an organization like the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially with the economic challenges that they're going to face on so many levels, they've got to think more globally. And what I mean by that is, part of the reason why I believe Dubas is talking to the agents for these two guys who are both restricted free agents at the end of the year, Janssen with salary arb rights, Kapanen without them, is because he wants to try and get a reasonable expectation of what their expectations are. And he wants to find out, is Kapanen absolutely, totally opposed to a bridge deal? Because he needs to know that. Because if he is, or Kyle Dubas senses that, you know what, this could be William Nylander Part 2 for me, and I can't afford to have a guy like Kapanen on the sidelines next year for 2 months. It's just not going to work. So Does that mean that maybe I might think more about trading him between now and Monday?
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's all just a matter of gathering the information and then factoring it into decisions that need to be made, because maybe they are going to look at Pesci or whoever and say, yeah, you know what? We're going to have so much trouble fitting these guys in or signing these guys that we're probably more prudent to get rid of one of them for a defenseman who's got 4 or 5 years left at a really club-friendly number. So, again, not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that's the thought process at work here. We also know that maybe it is, pinhole focus for the Leafs. Maybe it is simple as they had multiple scouts watching the Detroit Red Wings play last night. Maybe they're looking at Nick Jensen and saying, there's a good depth right shot defenseman who could be had for a draft pick that's not a first round pick. Why wouldn't we bring in? Maybe when they were looking at Carolina and the Rangers the other night, they were looking at Adam McQuaid strictly saying, hey, for a third round pick, because right now the Rangers expect and think they're going to get a third round pick for Adam McQuaid. Maybe that's the one. Or maybe they were thinking much bigger picture with the right shot defenseman from Carolina. So I guess what we're saying is we don't know.
Yeah. Right.
But I use this analogy, we all think we're playing checkers, and sometimes general managers have to play chess. And a general manager like Kyle Dubas might need to play chess because of the economic stuff that goes with all the hockey stuff and how you roll out your roster, not just this year, but next year and the year after.
And I can't get anyone to confirm this, but I think at the time when LA traded Jake Muzzin to Toronto, I think the Anaheim Ducks were pretty interested observers in all that. And I think to some degree, because the Ducks are all ears these days anyway. I mean, they're in for retooling, but I know a lot of people would love to see as a fit Brandon Montour in Toronto, but the kind of pieces that it would take to make that happen, I don't believe are pieces right now the Leafs want to give up. Going back to basically everything you just played out, Rob, right?
Absolutely.